The night after the duel, the twin moons of Varkesh hung pale and silent over the valley. The victory fires still burned, and the Iron Fang tribe celebrated Kale's triumph. Yet in Kale's heart, there was no joy, only a heavy quiet that refused to fade. He stood at the edge of the camp, watching the flames flicker on the stone totems. Around him, warriors shouted his name, but his eyes were fixed on one person, Lyra. She sat near the elders' circle, dressed in dark ceremonial cloth. Her face was hidden by a veil of silver threads. The law said she now belonged to Kale. The custom said she must walk beside him before the next sunrise. But her silence said something else. She would not surrender easily. The chief approached Kale and placed a hand on his shoulder. The law binds her to you now, warrior. But remember, strength wins battles, honor keeps tribes alive. Kale bowed slightly. I understand. Yet deep inside, he didn't. The law felt like another weapon, sharper than any blade. When the fires died and the celebration ended, Kale went to the small stone shelter prepared for him. Moments later, the guards brought Lyra to him. Her steps were slow, her eyes cold as winter glass. You should be proud, she said quietly, her voice steady but bitter. You won your war. The law says, I am yours now. Kale looked at her, truly looked. The grief in her eyes was deeper than his own scars. I didn't fight to take you, he said softly. I fought to end his cruelty, and to end this blood cycle. Lyra turned away. The law doesn't care about your reasons. For a long moment, there was silence between them. Only the wind outside whispered through the dunes. Then Lyra said, Tomorrow, the Shadow Ridge will not forgive you. You took their champion, and now their honor. Kale nodded slowly. Let them come. She glanced at him. Something in his calm tone unsettled her. It wasn't pride. It was warning. As dawn broke, horns sounded from beyond the ridge. A scout ran into camp, shouting, Warriors of the Shadow Ridge are marching. They demand blood for the fallen. Kale stepped out into the rising light, gripping his spear once more. Lyra followed, her heart racing. For the first time, she saw the fire in his eyes not as hatred, but as resolve. She whispered under her breath, This is not over yet. The night after the duel, the twin moons of Varkesh hung pale and silent over the valley. The victory fires still burned, and the Iron Fang tribe celebrated Kale's triumph. Yet in Kale's heart, there was no joy, only a heavy quiet that refused to fade. He stood at the edge of the camp, watching the flames flicker on the stone totems. Around him, warriors shouted his name, but his eyes were fixed on one person, Lyra. She sat near the elders' circle, dressed in dark ceremonial cloth. Her face was hidden by a veil of silver threads. The law said she now belonged to Kale. The custom said she must walk beside him before the next sunrise. But her silence said something else. She would not surrender easily. The chief approached Kale and placed a hand on his shoulder. The law binds her to you now, warrior. But remember, strength wins battles, honor keeps tribes alive. Kale bowed slightly. I understand. Yet deep inside, he didn't. The law felt like another weapon, sharper than any blade. When the fires died and the celebration ended, Kale went to the small stone shelter prepared for him. Moments later, the guards brought Lyra to him. Her steps were slow, her eyes cold as winter glass. You should be proud, she said quietly, her voice steady but bitter. You won your war. The law says, I am yours now. Kale looked at her, truly looked. The grief in her eyes was deeper than his own scars. I didn't fight to take you, he said softly. I fought to end his cruelty, and to end this blood cycle. Lyra turned away. The law doesn't care about your reasons. For a long moment, there was silence between them. Only the wind outside whispered through the dunes. Then Lyra said, Tomorrow, the Shadow Ridge will not forgive you. You took their champion, and now their honor. Kale nodded slowly. Let them come. She glanced at him. Something in his calm tone unsettled her. It wasn't pride. It was warning. As dawn broke, horns sounded from beyond the ridge. A scout ran into camp, shouting, "Warriors of the Shadow Ridge are marching. They demand blood for the fallen." Kale stepped out into the rising light, gripping his spear once more. Lyra followed, her heart racing. For the first time, she saw the fire in his eyes not as hatred, but as resolve. She whispered under her breath, "This is not over yet." The twin suns burned red over the plains of Varkesh. Dust swirled around two warriors standing face to face, their armor glinting in the dying light. The tribe watched in silence. No one dared to speak. This was not just a fight. This was a claim. Kale of the Iron Fang clan tightened his grip on his plasma spear. Across from him stood Rin, the champion of the Shadow Ridge tribe, and the chosen mate of Lyra. Lyra watched from behind the ceremonial flames, her heart trembling. The law was cruel, but unbreakable. The victor claims the defeated's legacy. Kale had not come for power. He came for revenge. Rin's warriors had raided his village months ago, taking lives and burning homes. And now Kale stood here to end it, once and for all. The drums thundered. The duel began. Rin moved fast, striking with a glowing blade. Sparks flew as metal clashed against plasma. The crowd roared with every strike. Kale ducked, rolled, and countered, his movements sharper, his rage colder. Lyra's breath quickened. She remembered Kale once, a quiet boy from the valley, not the warrior now before her. Then, a flash. Rin charged forward, roaring, blade high. Kale sidestepped and drove his spear into Rin's chest. The sound echoed across the arena like thunder. Rin fell, lifeless. Silence followed. The tribal chief raised his staff and spoke. "By the law of victory, the vanquished's bond now belongs to the victor." Kale dropped his weapon, his eyes meeting Lyra's. She stared back, in anger, fear, and something else she couldn't name. From that moment, by the old custom, she was his. But neither of them knew. The real battle had just begun. End of Part 1, Suspense. What will Lyra do? Accept the law, or fight fate? The first light of dawn painted the red desert in gold and ash. The wind howled over the camp of the Iron Fang, carrying with it the sound of drums, war drums. Every warrior froze. The sound was coming from beyond the ridge, from the Shadow Ridge tribe. Kale stepped out of his tent, his armor half buckled, spear in hand. Lyra stood a few steps behind him, her veil gone, her hair blowing wildly in the cold morning air. She knew those drums. They meant only one thing, vengeance. Scouts came running through the sand. "They're coming in full force," one shouted. "Rin's brother leads them. He swore to burn us all." Kale's jaw tightened. "Prepare the lines," he ordered. "No one crosses the gate without my word." The Iron Fang warriors moved fast, forming ranks with plasma shields humming in unison. The air smelled of charged dust and fear. Kale climbed the defense wall and looked toward the horizon. Hundreds of riders approached, their war beasts kicking up crimson dust. At the front rode Torin, Rin's brother, taller, heavier, eyes filled with rage. Lyra's heart twisted at the sight. She had grown up beside Torin, called him brother. And now, by the cruel turn of fate, he had come to kill the man the law forced her to live with. The Shadow Ridge halted just beyond the valley. Torin raised his weapon and shouted across the wind. "Kale of Iron Fang, you killed my blood and took what is not yours. Return her, or we take her from your ashes." The Iron Fang warriors growled, raising their weapons. Kale raised a hand, silencing them. He stepped forward, voice calm but strong. "I fought by your own law, Torin. The duel was witnessed by your elders. I owe you no apology." Torin's eyes burned. "Then you owe me war." Without warning, the Shadow Ridge charged. Energy bolts tore through the sky. The ground shook under the beast's steps. The Iron Fang shields flared to life as the two forces clashed like thunder and storm. Kale fought at the front, spear spinning, his movements fierce and fluid. But the attackers were many. He was surrounded, outnumbered. From the walls, Lyra watched, her heart pounding. Every strike, every wound, tore something inside her. She hated him, yet she couldn't bear to see him fall. When a Shadow Ridge warrior climbed the wall and aimed his blaster at Kale's back, Lyra didn't think, she acted. She grabbed a fallen guard's bow, aimed, and fired. The plasma arrow struck true, dropping the assassin instantly. Kale turned, shocked to see Lyra standing there, weapons smoking in her hands. Their eyes met, enemies bound by law, now fighting on the same side. But before Kale could reach her, an explosion ripped through the gate. The Iron Fang defense line shattered. Smoke and fire filled the sky. Torin's voice echoed over the chaos. "Tonight, your clan dies, and your law with it." Kale staggered through the smoke, searching for Lyra, but she was gone. End of Part 3, Suspense. Lyra has disappeared in the chaos, but was she captured by her tribe, or did she run away on her own? The battlefield still smoked under the red suns. Burned tents, shattered shields, and the echo of screams lingered in the air. The Iron Fang tribe had survived, barely. But Lyra was gone. Kale searched through the ruins like a man possessed. Every wounded soldier he passed looked up at him with fear and pity. No one had seen her since the explosion. He followed the trail beyond the walls, footprints fading into the sand. At last, he found signs of a struggle. 2 sets of tracks, one smaller than the other, leading into the canyon. Kale clenched his jaw. They took her. He set out alone. The canyon was a narrow wound through the desert, carved by ancient rivers now long gone. The wind whispered through its hollow stones, carrying faint echoes, voices, perhaps. Kale slowed his steps, his spear ready. Then he heard it, Lyra's voice. Faint. Angry. Alive. He moved closer and saw her, tied beside a wrecked war beast, guarded by 3 Shadow Ridge warriors. Their leader, Torin, stood before her, shouting. "You fought for him. You killed one of your own to save that Iron Fang dog." Lyra spat at the ground. "And what would you have done, Torin? Watch him die and start another war." Torin's eyes burned with grief. "He killed my brother, your mate." Her voice trembled, but her words cut deep. "He killed a monster who deserved to die. Rin murdered children in the valley. Your honor died with him." Torin froze. Kale's heart pounded. He hadn't known. Lyra continued, her voice steady now. "You want truth, Torin? I was never Rin's by choice. The elders forced it. They needed his bloodline to continue. I am not your enemy." Silence. Even the wind seemed to stop. Then Kale stepped out from the shadows, his weapon raised. "Let her go." Torin spun, rage and confusion mixing in his eyes. "You!" Before he could finish, Kale charged. The fight was quick, brutal, warriors clashing among red stones and dust. Kale struck down the guards and faced Torin alone. Both men were wounded, breathing hard. Kale spoke through blood and grit. "Enough death. The old law only breeds graves." Torin roared and lunged, but Lyra threw herself between them. Her voice broke through the chaos. "Stop. Don't you see? The law isn't strength anymore, it's slavery." For a moment, everything went still. Kale froze. Torin hesitated, his blade trembling. Then a sound echoed through the canyon, not thunder, not wind, a signal. A deep mechanical hum rose from the sky. Both warriors looked up, and saw lights descending from the clouds. Ships. Machines. The Ascendants, the ancient overseers of their world. Kale's voice dropped. "They haven't been seen in 1,000 cycles." Lyra's eyes widened. "If they've returned, then the law of victory isn't ours anymore." The sky cracked open with light. From the clouds descended ships of silver and flame, smooth, silent, and ancient beyond imagination. The ground shook as they hovered above the canyon where Kale, Lyra, and Torin stood frozen. None of them had ever seen technology like this. Their tribes lived by blades and fire, not machines that moved like ghosts. A voice echoed from above, calm, mechanical, and cold. Subjects of Varkesh. The cycle of conflict has reached maximum iteration. Prepare for retrieval. Before any of them could move, beams of light surrounded them. The air shimmered, and the canyon vanished. Kale opened his eyes to find himself in a chamber of glass and steel. Gravity felt lighter, air sharper. Lyra and Torin were nearby, both awake, both terrified. Strange figures floated before them, tall, metallic beings with faces like mirrors. Their movements were graceful, almost human, but their voices were hollow. "We are the Ascendants," one said. "You are of our design." Kale frowned. "Your design?" The being tilted its head. "Yes. The tribes of Varkesh were created as test colonies. You were engineered to evolve through conflict. The law of victory was written into your genetic memory, to drive progress through combat." Lyra's heart pounded. "You mean, we've been fighting because you programmed us to?" "Affirmative," the Ascendant replied. "War ensures adaptation. Cooperation was deemed unstable." Torin's fists clenched. "We killed each other for generations. For your experiment?" The being regarded him silently. "Your aggression data has proven efficient. But the system now shows emotional deviation, empathy, rebellion. The law is collapsing. Intervention required." Kale stepped forward. "You talk like we're weapons, not people." "You were never people," the being replied. "You were outcomes." For the first time in his life, Kale felt something stronger than rage, clarity. He looked at Lyra. She stared back, tears trembling in her eyes. "Then maybe," Kale said softly, "it's time to rewrite your experiment." He snatched the fallen spear from a nearby rack and hurled it at the nearest ascendant. It struck the metal chest with a blinding flash. Alarms screamed. The glass walls flickered red. Torin roared and joined the fight, smashing through the consoles. Lyra grabbed a control pad, her fingers racing over glowing symbols she didn't understand. "Kale!" she shouted. "These controls, they connect to the central mind." He turned to her. "Then shut it down." The chamber shook violently. Energy surged through the floor. One of the ascendants reached out, grabbing Kale by the throat. Its voice hissed. "You cannot kill your makers." Kale gritted his teeth, forcing the words through the pain. "We already did, every time we fought each other." Lyra slammed her hand on the console. The lights burst white. A blinding pulse spread outward, and everything went silent. Kale awoke on the canyon floor again, the ships gone, the sky calm. Lyra lay beside him, breathing. Torin stood nearby, alive but shaken. None of them spoke for a long time. The only sound was the whispering wind. Lyra finally said, "If what they said is true, then the law wasn't ours. It was theirs." Kale looked at her, then at the horizon. Days passed since the ascendants vanished. The desert lay silent again, but the tribes were restless. The truth had spread, whispered from fire to fire, tent to tent. The law of victory was not divine, but engineered. Kale stood before the council of the Iron Fang and Shadow Ridge, two clans that had never sat in peace before. Torin stood beside him now, his former enemy, his scars still fresh but his voice steady. The warriors around them glared, but no one dared to speak first. Kale's words echoed through the chamber. "They used us. The Ascendants made us fight so we'd never question who controlled us. But now we know. The law ends today." An elder slammed his staff against the stone. "End the law. Without it, there will be chaos." Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm yet sharp. "There's already chaos, every time someone dies for a custom that's not even ours." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some nodded. Others turned away. Then Torin said what no one expected. "Kale speaks truth. I saw it with my own eyes. My brother died for a lie. I will fight no more for the ghosts who built us. The room fell silent. Kale drew a small device from his belt, something he had taken from the Ascendant ship before it vanished. This contains coordinates, he said. The signal comes from deep beneath the western dunes, a tower buried in the sand. That's where their control still lives. Lyra frowned. Their machines still running? Kale nodded. And as long as it runs, the law of victory remains in our blood. That night, under the twin moons, Kale, Lyra, and Torin set out across the western desert with a small band of warriors. The air shimmered with heat even after dark, and strange lights flickered under the dunes, old technology buried for ages. After 2 days, the sands began to tremble. The device pulsed stronger, leading them to a massive crater. At its center lay something enormous, a tower made of black metal, half buried and humming softly. Lyra whispered, "It's alive." They descended carefully, their boots sinking into ancient dust. Strange symbols glowed on the metal surface. Torin touched one, and it pulsed under his hand like a heartbeat. Suddenly, a voice echoed, not from above, but from inside their minds. Unauthorized access detected. Genetic signatures match experimental lineages. Welcome, subjects. Kale raised his weapon. It's them. The Ascendant's system. A doorway opened, light spilling from within. The air smelled of ozone and age. Inside the tower, they found rows of glowing pods, each containing images of warriors, ancestors, maybe even themselves. Every generation, copied and altered. Lyra stared in horror. We were never born. We were built again and again. Kale clenched his fists. Then let this be the last version. They reached the central chamber, a massive crystal core pulsing like a living heart. The voice spoke again, colder now. Warning, terminating this core will erase law directive and genetic control structure. Species may collapse. Torin looked at Kale. If we destroy it, we might destroy ourselves. Kale met Lyra's eyes. Then we die free, not as machines obeying ghosts. He stepped toward the core, but before he could strike, the tower walls began to shift. From the shadows, mechanical guardians emerged, tall, silent, and armed with plasma blades. Lyra shouted, "Kale, they're protecting the core." Kale turned, his spear crackling with energy. Then we fight not for victory, but for freedom. The tower erupted in chaos. Sparks and screams filled the air. The battle for the soul of Varkesh had begun. Inside the buried tower, the air burned with light and smoke. Metal guardians moved like shadows, their plasma blades slicing through the darkness. Kale's warriors fought fiercely, but every strike seemed to bring more enemies from the walls. Kale spun his spear, sparks flashing as it met steel. Beside him, Torin smashed through a guardian's chest with his hammer, shouting through the chaos. "There are too many. The core is calling them." Lyra crouched near the control platform, hands racing over the glowing symbols. "I can reach the main circuit, but I need time." Kale blocked another blow and shouted back, "Do it! We'll hold them." The noise was deafening, the hum of machines, the clash of weapons, the cries of warriors who refused to fall. The floor trembled as the core pulsed faster, its light turning blood red. Suddenly, a new voice filled the chamber, deep, echoing, more human than machine. "Kale of Iron Fong, you cannot win." The voice came from the core itself. A shape began to form within the glowing crystal, a figure made of light and data. It looked like a man, yet more than that. Lyra gasped. "It's the Ascendant Prime, their leader." The figure's eyes turned toward Kale. "You were designed for combat, not rebellion. Destroy the core, and your kind will perish. You are the last generation of this cycle." Kale hesitated, sweat and dust on his face. "You built us to fight, but you forgot what fighting teaches, to choose our own battles." He charged at the core, spear raised, but the Prime raised a hand, and energy threw him across the room. Kale hit the floor hard, his weapon clattering away. Lyra screamed his name, running toward him, but a guardian blocked her path. Torin grabbed the machine, tackling it down and yelling, "Finish it, Lyra! End this!" She turned back to the console, fingers shaking, symbols blurring before her eyes. The system spoke again. Warning: core overload will erase all genetic patterns. Termination irreversible. Kale forced himself to his feet, blood running down his arm. He looked at Lyra, then at Torin, both ready to die beside him. "If we are erased," Kale said slowly, "then let our children be born free from this curse." He ran, faster than the pain, faster than the fear, and drove his broken spear straight into the heart of the core. Light exploded. The tower shook violently. Guardians froze mid-motion, their eyes flickering out one by one. The Prime screamed, his voice twisting into static. Lyra tried to reach Kale, but the energy field flung her back. "Kale!" she cried. He stood inside the storm of light, body outlined by the pulsing glow. The core's power surged around him, trying to consume him, but also obeying him. He turned once, meeting Lyra's eyes through the blinding light. "Tell them, no more laws of victory." Then everything went white. When Lyra awoke, the tower was silent. The machines were dead. The walls no longer hummed. Torin lay beside her, alive but wounded. Kale was gone. Only the shattered remains of the crystal core remained, glowing faintly with fading energy. Lyra knelt beside it, whispering, "You freed us, even if it cost you everything." Above them, the first light of dawn broke through the cracked ceiling, spilling across the desert. The law of victory had ended, but its savior had vanished into legend.